Deaf people have read it. How scary is farting in public? Funny thing, I have severe hearing loss. I finally got hearing aids and realized that many of those silent but deadlies were just deadly. My family never told me. They thought I knew and was just being a dad. Lol. When I met my now wife, I had a real understanding of the ramifications of her hearing loss. I knew she was partially deaf and that we needed subtitles for television. Through our relationship, I learned so much more. One thing in particular, I learned I could blame any flatulence on the dog easily. Now, originally, I thought this was strictly smell-related, but as I came to understand, I could fully rip one in front of her, so long as I didn't lift a butt cheek. She wouldn't suspect me for a second. Fast forward. I am regularly in the home letting loose loud farts, not smelly, but not sneaky. At all. Turns out I oftentimes forget that in public not everyone is deaf. Silent may not be deadly, but loud farts can be heard by normal people, and judged accordingly. Shit. My group of deaf friends let it rip whenever they want, but I suspect it's because they don't give a fuck. I hold it in and wait for a good time with no one around. I have to say I did rip a beast of a fart when I thought no one was around, not knowing that someone was rounding the corner. He looked like a bomb victim approaching the mushroom cloud, and I didn't wait around to see his reaction to the smell. I have deaf family, so growing up meant going to the deaf club every weekend, big event, etc. Being a child at butt height in a room full of deaf adults who casually rip ass because no one can hear who dealt it was traumatic. My dad is deaf, and every summer we go group camping with many other deaf people. One particular year, I was hanging out with my dad's girlfriend at the time and some of her deaf friends. In the middle of the conversation, she let a huge one rip. I was the only hearing one in the group, and we were outdoors, so really I was the only one who knew. After the conversation was over, she asked me if I had heard her fart, and we had a pretty good laugh about it. Not deaf, but I do have congenital anosmia, which means I have had no sense of smell since birth. It's difficult to appreciate the issue of farting when I can't fathom smell. I tend to just let them go and hope no one notices. Technically, it can never be me who dealt it since I can't have smelt it. I go to the bathroom if I feel like I'm going to. Don't want any mishaps. A friend of mine works with deaf people and says they fart all the time whenever, wherever because they have no idea it makes a sound. What I don't get is they don't feel that terrible internal rumble and release all that pressure and let her rip and stink out of place but think it's okay because they can't hear it. As a teacher, I'm accustomed to junior high kids farting, but today was something special. An 8th grader who has a hearing aid farted in class, and it was really loud and it smelled like decaying flesh. He happened to be sitting near the shelf where I run my essential oil diffuser, and the scent of his fart mixed with the orange scent I had going and created its own new concoction. It lingered for quite a while, too. I'm still shuddering thinking about the stench I had to pretend to ignore. My grandma's hearing was going downhill, and it was hit or miss if her hearing aids were working right. So my sister and I have to take her to Mass one year while my mom stayed home to watch my dad, dying at the time. This is like most cathedrals: high ceilings, stone floors and walls, and wooden pews. The deacon was in the middle of his sermon, and my grandma lets loose. Now Grandma was overweight, so that created a bit of a seal that she blasted through, reverberating off the wooden pew, stone floors and walls, all the way up to heaven itself probably. The sermon stopped momentarily, the deacon's mouth hanging open as everyone turned to look. But the deacon recovered quickly and things carried on. Later in the car, my sister said, "Grandma, what the hell was that?" "What? You farted." "Oh, I thought no one would hear." Not nearly as scary as when I found out getting an erection makes a loud noise. There is a deaf guy that I work with. He takes the loudest shits. Like you can tell he is pushing as hard as he can. I want to tell him, but that shit's too hilarious. This would make more sense for blind people. Deaf people may not be able to hear it, but they can look around and make a judgment call. Blind people basically have to guess how many people are around by sounds. A library, for instance, would be a tough call to make. Buses. Might only be the driver, or the whole back of the bus could be full. Trolley or subway. Some routes it's a crapshoot pack car or not, and everybody trying to make as little noise as possible because nobody wants to be noticed. I would fart extra loud if I was around deaf people to see if they could feel the vibration. I've been married to a deaf wife for 33 years. I've been to many deaf functions, often as one of the only hearing people there. They are the quietest functions you'll ever attend. A lot of fly swatting, signing, along with a lot of grunting. Some deaf have very good voices. My wife is one. Many do not. Hence the grunting. These folks saying they rip ass all the time may have experienced that. I have not. My wife does fart, though, and they are fucking killers. Of course I call her on it, signing, "Did you just shit?" She gets all self-conscious and tells me I do too. That was never in question. I just like calling her on it because it kills her. Oh well, 33 years of marriage and this is what you have. How scary is farting in public when you have your headphones on? Same here. I have hearing aids so I can hear farts. That said, I love letting out stealthy public farts. My favorite fart was when I was in high school biology class. We were doing a lab, so I walked to the end of the room to get something and let out the nastiest fart I have ever made in my life. I walked back to my spot, and a couple minutes later, the teacher yelled out that whoever farted needs to see a doctor. Heh. My little brother is deaf, and he'll casually let one's rip from time to time with no acknowledgement or care. Although, with my experience with deaf people, farting really isn't the problem. I'd say if you have a phobia or a problem with listening to people eating or smacking their lips loudly, then don't eat around deaf people. Especially if it is spaghetti. I repeat, spaghetti. I have to leave the room when my brother eats any type of noodle because it is the grossest thing I've ever heard. I can't even begin to describe it without making myself nauseous. This is the reason why farts stink, so deaf people can enjoy them too. Pro tip: if you need to fart in public, do it beside a mother and her child. She'll think her kid had an accident.